We're going to get started. At this time, I'd like to call our January 2020 Planning Commission meeting to order. Please silence all your cell phones if you don't mind. Amber, please call roll.
Kelly Bledsoe. Robin Bridges.
Here.
Phil Chancellor.
Here.
Jen Jager.
Here.
Matt Glassby.
Here.
Marcus Marshall.
Here.
Warren McCord.
Here.
Chris Reese.
Here.
Bob Blackwell.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Before we get started, I'd like to just kind of go over a few of the ground rules of our meeting tonight, just for informational purposes. And so what we'll be doing today is the commission will be presented with agenda items by the city planning department, and a representative for the agenda item will have an opportunity to speak if they would like to, and or answer specific questions from the commission. And then I'll open a public hearing if it's appropriate. Some of these items do not require a public hearing. And this is the opportunity for you to come forward and speak on any of these issues. And our goal is to have everybody heard, and we ask that you come forward and speak if you'd like to, and limit your time to 5 minutes. I'd also like to make sure that if you do come and speak, please sign up on the, there's a sign-in sheet here in the front. After everybody has spoken, I'll close the public hearing, and then a representative of the staff will then have an opportunity to answer any questions and respond to any issues that might have been brought up during that hearing. And then we'll open the floor for the commission for questions and comments. The commission will then vote based on applicable state and local laws, the city's comprehensive plan 2030, and for the basic good of the community. Having summarized these basics, what I'd also like to talk about briefly here is this, the idea of some of these items are subdivision plats. And by Alabama statute, the municipal planning commission such as ours, we have the final approval authority for all subdivision plats. And so with regard to the plats, the commission acts as an administrative body that is bound by limitations that are contained in state laws, the city zoning ordinance, and subdivision regulations that we have previously approved. So while the hearings are required on each plat, and we welcome each of the preliminary plats, not the final plats, we will welcome any and all public comments during concerning these items. But you please do understand that our authority is strictly limited to confirming that the plat meets or exceeds specific requirements that have been codified in the laws. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is time for citizens communication, and this is specifically for items that are either that are not on the agenda at all or might be in the consent agenda. And we have 3 items in the consent agenda: the meeting minutes for the packet and regular meeting of December, the Allen annexation, and the Hanson annexation. So if you would like to speak on the consent agenda or something that's not on the agenda, please come forward now. All right, seeing no one, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Cotton.
Yes. Would the board wish to remove any item from the consent agenda for discussion?
No, sir. I think we're good. Okay. So do we have a motion?
We went over these in detail at the packet meeting. I'd move we approve the consent agenda and include the minutes to the packet meeting of December the 9th and the regular meeting of December the 12th.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
And I'll be recusing myself from the consent agenda tonight.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 3, which is item number 3 is a moratorium ordinance. This is case PL 2019-703. This is a recommendation to the City Council to declare a moratorium on the construction of private dormitory and academic detached dwelling units developments within the City of Auburn. Mr. Cotton.
Yes, sir. You can see the staff report is relatively brief relative to what you're accustomed to seeing from us. This particular ordinance actually emanated from some concerns expressed by Mayor Anders upon his election back last fall. Immediately upon him seating at the council, there were 4 task forces that were formed that Mayor Andrews appointed to deal with issues of particular community concern, one of which was a student housing task force. That group met off and on for the better part of a year. The work product that was generated from that was a very comprehensive student housing inventory. That issue, somewhat compounded by the recent Auburn University policy on capping enrollment at 25,000 students, and then a realization of the number of beds not only on the ground but those coming, the mayor reached out to the rest of the council to ask them to consider supporting a moratorium, to give the city some time to examine a number of different things related to building codes and zoning ordinance requirements. And again, as you mentioned, Chair Chancellor, the moratorium as written and as advertised would apply to what's defined as academic detached dwelling units and private dormitories exclusively. This was not an issue that was recommended or initiated by the staff. So we simply have it here for your consideration to render a recommendation onto the City Council. If you choose to recommend and pass this along to the City Council, it would be scheduled for their consideration on February 18th.
Okay, thank you. So there's, just to let everybody know, there's no specific, other than making a recommendation for the moratorium, there's no further action that's going to be taken on this item until after something else happens beyond the vote at the City Council.
Yes, sir.
So this requires a public hearing. I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Would anybody like to come forward and speak on this item? Please come forward. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Ask for questions, comments, or motion from the commission.
I move on approval item 4 on the agenda.
Item 3. Or do I have it wrong?
I don't know, maybe I got it wrong.
Well, this will be PL case 2019-703, moratorium ordinance.
Yeah, okay.
It's been seconded. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
You did it right.
Yeah, I did it again. Okay, the next item is the Williams rezoning. This is case PL 2019-687. Mr. Howell.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Okay, so second case today is going to be a rezoning request for the Williams property located on North College Street in the NC 20 zoning district. The request is for approximately 1.8 acres just north of the Cary Creek Planned Development District and south and west of the Ashton Lane Planned Development District here. It's kind of an odd situation where the zoning district that it's in and the future land use designation don't necessarily meet up with the areas that are surrounding it. You have some rural lots that are part of the Ashton Lane PDD, which are cluster housing, along with cluster housing part of the same PDD in the NC 20 zoning district, or base zoning district. And then you have its designation as neighborhood preservation, which would align it with Ashton Park further to the east, which is separated by the PDD. So it's kind of an island of its own. The request they want to rezone themselves to is DDH, which would be similar to the Cary Creek PDD to its south. The applicant at this time has not shared any development proposals. When I spoke to them, they said that is not part of this request. They just wanted to be able to rezone for possible opportunity later. Under a DDH with 1.8 acres, they would be permitted 7 units of conventional subdivisions and up to 9 units of performance subdivision. It is important to note that Water Resources pointed out that since it's on a septic right now, any additional units above the one unit that it has right now would require connection into the city, and that would be part of any development that would come through the DRT process. I've received two phone calls about this. Neither of them were for or against, only looking for information. Here's a site of what's currently there. It is a existing single-family home, single curb cut moving in, overhead. And pending any of your questions from staff.
Okay, thank you. Would the property owner, if she's here, like to speak on this item? Can you state your name and address too for the record?
Mary D. Williams, 1662 North College Street, Auburn.
Thank you.
And I'm the owner. And I would like for my son and my daughter-in-law to
Okay,
speak for
sure.
me because I don't hear very well.
No problem.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We were requesting the change to a DDH, just for the opportunity to bring the highest possible sale of the property that is being there. One of the reasons we asked for the DDH, we just know that being that it's been surrounded by development, we've had developers, or my parents had developers, my dad's deceased, coming up to the property, wanted to buy the property. You know, Ashton Park was one of them. Cary Creek was one of them. Well, the original person for Cary Creek was not the one that asked, but it was the predecessor who bought the property for Cary Creek. Developers are kind of, get nasty. They said, we'll get it one day. So that's why we said, well, if we're going to sell it, we might as well, let them.
That's fair.
Reasonable.
Yeah,
And the surrounding property is DDH.
yeah, the surrounding property is DDH.
The same.
Yeah.
We requested.
The only thing I would know that anybody would object to is it's a log home, and I know the pictures don't show that. It's a log home. It's not a log cabin home. It's a log home, and some people, we had a recent yard sale. They like how it sits. They've seen it for years, but the only thing is that if it's sold, it could be a developer. They'll just tear it down anyway. So, and carve it up into the DDH. So we'd just like to have the first opportunity to sell it as that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay, well, this requires a public hearing. So at this time, anybody would like to come forward and talk on this subject, please come forward. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Ask for questions, comments, or motion from the, were you getting, I'm sorry, I didn't see you moving there. Thanks. I will reopen the public hearing. Sorry about that, Ms. Penrod.
I'm Joan Penrod. I live at 108 Ashton Lane in the village on Ashton Lane. And our development has 14 units.
Which is adjoining, right?
And it is directly.
Okay.
My driveway is almost on the property line for this property. There's a little bank. There are a couple of things I'm concerned about, but that would probably come after it is sold, if it's sold to a developer. My question is, if it's approved for DDH now, and then they sell the property to a developer, can that developer move it up a notch to higher density?
They can come before the commission and
It would
request it.
have to come before the commission,
Right. There's a
right.
process to do that, but yes, ma'am, they could.
Okay. It's a nice piece of property, and it's got some great potential, and I would love to see something just similar to what we have, because we need more of that type of housing.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is that yours?
No, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, now close public hearing again and ask for any kind of questions, comments, or motion.
Okay, if no one's have comments, I'll make a motion to approve PL 2019-00687 with all staff comments.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, so we're on to item number 6, North Ross duplexes, case PL 2019-707.
I am recusing.
Yes, good evening. These next two cases are regarding the property on North Ross. It's a consolidation plat from 6 existing lots into 1 lot for the purposes of a multiple unit development that was approved back in August of last year. This is the preliminary plat. These structures will be removed, and then the new use will be constructed on the lot. Did not receive any correspondence with this one, and we do recommend approval with staff comments.
Okay, Mr. Lewis, anything to say?
We haven't answered any questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, this requires a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody like to come forward and speak on this, please do. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and ask for questions, comments, or a motion from the council, commission.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 7 is the final plat of the same property. PL 2019-708.
Clicker doesn't like me. That's correct. This is the final plat. They meet all of the requirements from the subdivision regulations. Total acreage is just over an acre, 6 lots into 1.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this does not require a public hearing, so do I have a motion?
Staff comments this time.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, item number 8. This is the Farmville Lakes amenity lot, PL 2019-710. Mr. Howell.
This case is a preliminary plat request for approximately 1.54 acres in the Farmville Lakes Plan Development District with an underlying zoning district of Comprehensive Development District. As you can see, it's located at the terminus of Farmville Lakes Drive. Although it's not shown on here, there's a large body of water right there, which we'll see in the aerial. It's on the north side of town. You have Highway 280 here, and you have East Farmville Road as it makes its intersection with the highway there. The lot itself was originally part of Farmville Lakes Phase 3, which received its most recent final plat in June of this last year. And in that, it was identified as outdoor recreation in accordance with the master development plan for the plan development district. They're in a position now where they would like to begin construction of this amenity after the proper approvals. However, the rest of the plat that it's part of is not ready to be recorded, so they're trying to pull this out in order to be able to record it and be able to do that construction. Also, part of this will be an extension of Farmville Lakes Drive right-of-way where it's at currently, based on a previous plat, to the base of Alabama Power easement down to the opposite side of the property. Staff is recommending approval. We have not received any communication for this proposal. Here's the overhead. It shows you the Alabama power easement as it goes east to west, the lake that it sits on, and the future development area of Farmville Lakes around that lake.
Okay, thank you. Is there an applicant representative here that would like to? Okay, so this requires a public hearing, and so I'll open the public hearing at this time. Please come forward if you're interested in speaking on this item. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Ask for any comments or a motion from the commission.
I will move to approve PL case 2019-00710
Second.
with staff comments.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 9 is also related to the same property. This is PL 2019-709, and we're looking at a conditional use for the outdoor recreational subdivision amenity.
Yeah, so in the original master development plan for this plan development district, this particular lot was identified as an outdoor, or was identified as an amenity. However, the subdivision requirements state that you have to meet a certain number of requirements in order to be considered an amenity. Those would be that you can only have one structure and it has to be limited to 500 square feet. The development is proposing to include 2 different structures, both of which over 500 square feet. One, you have a pool here, parking lot here, and then next to Farmville Lakes Drive, you have a pool house. And then on the back side of the property, as it sits on top of the lake, you have an additional structure for a meeting space and a gym. And so because those requirements exceed the limitations of an amenity, it now becomes an outdoor recreation use and has to be considered on its own for a conditional use. As we mentioned earlier, it is part of the master development plan in accordance with this. One note is that because of the buffer yard requirements of an outdoor recreation use of this designation, it has a 15-foot buffer yard requirement around all sides. That will require their parking lot to be moved back to a certain amount, which they have agreed to do. However, they've also requested for a buffer yard waiver, or to reduce that requirement from 15 feet to 10 feet. Since this is in accordance with their plan and it supports the area around it and the residences that will be there in the near future, staff agrees with the reasonableness of the waiver request, and we're also recommending approval for the conditional use request. I've not received any communication about this either.
Just out of curiosity, can you go back one? So assuming that building's not on the lake, is it going to be on the piece of land right there in the front of it? So it's going to be located? Yeah, the building that's going to be the kind of workout facility.
They'll fill that in.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Is that a man-made lake, I suppose?
I do not know the history of the lake itself, but it's there now.
When you fill waters of this type, is there any federal approval that you have to make or anything?
I'm not aware of any.
I'm not aware of any either. The most recent experience I have is down at the Canukin property where Summerlin's being built, and all that entire back lake was filled in for development.
Is that something we can look into just as part of the?
The applicant.
Do we have, well, we have the applicant here. Do you know any, can you help us out here?
David Slocum with Pinnacle Design Group. The plan is not to fill it in. It will actually be built kind of like you would see a dock on the lake.
So it's going to be okay.
So it would have water under it.
Well, that explains
So that's something codes may have never seen before, but if y'all know Michael Dilworth, he likes to do unique things, so this will be a unique building.
There we go. Okay. Well, that settles that. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Is that
Any questions of staff?
Okay. All right. Well, that's going to require a public hearing. So anybody would like to come speak on this amenity, this use, conditional use, please come forward. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Ask for any other comments or,
Why are we reducing this buffer area on the,
it was the parking, right?
or why are we reducing the buffer area?
Is the question why staff is recommending approval for it?
I'm asking why are we requesting it? Seems like to me you just moved the parking lot over and, I mean, it's not constructed yet, is it, no?
It is not constructed yet. One thing I didn't forget to mention in the report is that as designed, we don't have floor plans yet, so this is a rough estimate of occupancy, but occupancy requirements could give them as much as 200 occupancy, and then in which case the parking spaces shown will be inadequate, and they will need to either increase parking, provide a floor plan that reduces the occupancy, or request a variance to that parking requirement. So,
And my question is, why are you requesting a reduction in the 15-foot buffer area?
There's a large transmission power line there, and there's a pole pointed out on the drawing close by the parking area. So in order to get a double row of parking off the right-of-way, it's moving our parking lot close to that power pole, which Alabama Power does not like, so that would give us a little bit of breathing room so we could get enough parking in there. That's the main reason.
That buffer area requires a certain amount of landscaping.
landscaping requirements would not change.
So what you're saying is you're amenable to
More stuff, smaller space.
more, the required amount of landscaping that's required by the required buffer, but just located someplace else on the property, is that what I'm hearing?
Still in the
Correct.
buffer yard.
That or just make it more dense. in the
Yeah, they
same
would,
area.
they would be required in the same buffer yard.
Oh, very
They would
good.
just
More dense.
Very good. Okay.
10 inches and 10 feet versus 10 inches and 15 feet.
Our approval, are we approving this variance? Is that included in this motion?
Well, it's a waiver. And
Yeah,
is that two motions?
typically what we'll do is if you're inclined to approve the use, you'll include it can be one motion with the waiver. If the waiver comes in, we'll typically just put it in with the conditional use. It accompanies the same application. It becomes part of the same package, as opposed to two separate applications.
Okay, I'm a little bit, you've got less than half the parking spaces that are required for what you've shown on the plan. Any way to rebalance that or add more parking or?
So whenever they come forward with the development to build and produce get the plan approvals for this, they go through the DRT process. And the DRT process will identify any kind of occupancy. They'll go into much finer detail than a conditional use request and actually look at the individual requirements of the site and the plans and make sure that all their various requirements, whether they be for planning, engineering codes, water resources, meet not just the zoning ordinance, but also building code, accessibility requirements, any other things that the city requires at the detailed level. So this won't be the last time the city staff will get a chance to make sure that they follow the parking requirements.
We approve it, they come back with a more detailed plan. They'll say, here's what the occupancy is for the building, which will drive what the parking is, and then we make decisions based on that.
That's correct, and that's the typical procedure for development after a conditional use.
Should approve this preliminary and not approve a final?
Well, no, this is a conditional use application.
Okay, I'm
Just for the
sorry.
use.
Okay.
The applicant requested a final plat approval, however, the city required that final to be pulled because we needed more additional engineering requirements, engineering specifications for the right-of-way extension of Farmville Road.
Answered all my questions.
Okay, good. Let's see that open public hearing. Okay, but this requires a public hearing. I think I already had the public hearing, so never mind. Thank you. Okay, so any further comments? Motion?
I move that PC case 00709 Farmville Lakes amenity conditional use be approved to include the waiver request for the buffer yard, subject to all the other conditions included in staff
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, the next item, which is item number 10, 306 East Thatch, PL 2019-698, has been requested by the applicant to be postponed until a date certain of 13 February, which is our next meeting. So I'm
That's
asking
correct.
for a motion for
Move
that.
to postpone to February 13th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 11, Wimberley Road Telecommunication Tower. Case PL 2019-705, a recommendation to City Council for conditional use approval for a public service use, which is a communications tower. Mr. Howell.
Subject property is located on Wimberley Road, in between the portion of Wimberley Road as it bends to the east-west and the Highway 14, well, the CSX Railway that's just south of the Highway 14. So it's a rather long, slender lot. It's located in the DDH zoning district on the west side of town. You have several lots of rural residential to its south, and you have some LDD subdivision to the north on the other side of Highway 14. This is a site plan for the proposed location. Cell phone towers or telecommunication towers have to abide by two different setback requirements. The first of which is a residential requirement where the site itself has to be no closer than 200 feet to any residence. This adheres to that. The second one is that it has to be set back a distance equal to half the tower's height from all lot lines. This particular tower is proposed to be 250 feet, requiring a 125-foot setback from all lot lines. As noted in the report, it does not meet that. And so, because it's too close to two sides on its north and eastern boundary.
Do we have this drawing we could put up? I think it's a little clearer to see. Thanks.
So staff does not have a problem with the use and the location that it's in. It is allowed conditionally. The property is designated neighborhood preservation. However, it does not adjoin any neighborhood preservation of similar zoning district. And so, and given the physical, or excuse me, the geometric constraints of the lot, there's not too much allowed for opportunity of residential homes. However, staff is recommending approval. We do point out the recommendation that it be located on a site that's conforming with the setback requirements, located here in green. You'll see that it does push it a little bit closer into the center of the buildable area of the lot. The surrounding area would be all wooded. It would still conform with the 200-foot requirement from residences, would not need a variance. There's the aerial shows the current state, and that's the woods as it is right now.
Could you make some mention of a tower that tall maybe needing FAA review?
We can make that a condition.
I'm not making it as a condition, I just wanted the public record that it's known that our approval may not be the final approval. It may take
Yeah, the FAA has purview over all towers as well.
I'd just like to make that part of the record.
Similar to the last case, this conditional approval does not mean that it does not get further reviewed from all authority bodies. I've received two bits of communication from this. One from 4011, the owner directly to the south. He voiced his concerns about the location of the tower being directly across, and wanted to make known that he was against the proposal. Also had some communication from the neighborhood to the north. also voicing their concerns and their, that the fact that they were against the development. I do believe that there might have been some confusion, that they thought that it was in the same zoning district as they were. That's not the case.
Or did the applicant say why they didn't propose it where the ordinance?
As it was explained to me, is that a lot of the preliminary site work has already been done.
They did the site work prior to reading the ordinance?
That would be my understanding.
So that means they would have to have the variance before we can,
So going back to the Talmadge case, it was the opinion that Planning Commission needed to have purview over conditional use and any preliminary approvals before a case could have access to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. In this particular case, approving this conditional use does not, even saying that they can do this without mention of the setbacks, does not mean that they will be able to have that particular location. They will still have to receive a variance in order to, they'll either have to get a variance for that location or relocate it to the position in green that's shown on the map there.
Unless we specify in the approval.
Well, you would, specifying that they still need to get a variance is perfectly fine. They would still need to get it anyway. I don't believe that you would be able to, I do not believe that you would be able to relieve them of that setback requirement.
Oh, I don't want to.
no.
Okay,
Personally.
Approving the use, right?
Yeah.
So
sorry?
we're just approving the use
Right.
anyway, so.
They'll approve the use, they'll still have to apply for the variance if they want to put it in their proposed location and get additional
Or move
approval
it.
for that.
That is correct.
Or move it into the compliant area, which would require no further action on their
If you wanted to make this conditional on getting a variance, then if they were denied that variance, Forrest might correct me, but that conditional use approval then goes away because it was contingent on getting the variance.
Do they get that variance from us or another group?
The Board of Zoning Adjustment would adjudicate variances.
Which means they'll get it.
Well, there may be some positive impacts of them getting that variance, even though I think they certainly should have read the ordinance and gotten the variance before they start doing land prep. I have no sympathy for whatever money they lose for that. However, if I recall, you said that the people in lot 4011 was concerned about it being in the backyard. Where they're proposing and putting it is further away from them than if it were
In the
where the ordinance requires.
That's true.
So then you'd have to look at, well, what it does put it closer to something else that may be there in the future, but it's not there, which is the property to the east.
But the BZA will make that determination, correct?
The BZA deals with that, and we don't. So if we approve the conditional use, we have no authority then to require that it meet all setback requirements.
You could, like I said, you could make it
Good. And then the
contingent
BZA could-
on a variance.
Pardon?
You could make it contingent on variance, in which case, if they are denied the variance, then they lose the conditional use.
We could not,
They have to get the variance anyway, though, right?
For that
They
particular
want it
site,
to be
for
in
that
that
particular location.
well, the BZA deals with those things that deal with hardships that are created by strict adherence to the ordinance.
That's creepy.
So we do not have to specify that it meet all setback requirements in the approval of the conditional use. They'll have to do it anyway. Is that correct? Unless the BZA.
That is correct.
Unless we get
Okay.
a variance.
All right, so we have representatives from the applicant here. I see two people waving at me, but I'm not sure. Are you both
Applicant is here.
applicants? Then you have to, please wait, sir. I'm one of the applicant representatives?
One of the residents that lives across.
Okay, we'll have to wait for the public hearing. Excuse me, sir, we'll open the public hearing and you can come up and speak at that time. Okay, can I talk to the applicant? Would you have anything to say to us on this issue?
Yes, my name is Mark Lyden. I work with Verizon Wireless, and Terry Parker is here with me, the landowner. We have read the ordinance, by the way. If you look at the compliant area, it's actually closer to residential. Mr. Parker wanted it there away from most everything. He is the property owner to the right, so he doesn't mind it being not compliant with the setback to that right land area. CSX Railroad, I know doesn't. We do a lot of deals with them. So it was between the negotiations with Verizon and Mr. Parker. This is where we ended up with it right here. If we moved it forward, I mean, it would be closer to the residents that object to it. They would see it. But, you know, if we keep it back in the back, and we will be, I noticed there was some discussion from staff about making the access road instead of straight, maybe making a curvature so they couldn't see straight to the cell site. We'd be willing to do that. We're also willing to bear the expense of going to the BZA. We've done that before. I don't know how many times. We were here last night.
You were here last night.
But, so we're used to doing that. And we'll bear the expense of doing that, but we have read the code. But we're doing, this is how we end up with discussions with property owner and legal with Verizon on how they come to a meeting of the minds. And that's how we end up there. Then we try to make it work, and it really benefits the residents. There is another, I don't know if you guys got that in time for us. There was a before and after coverage map. It's not on there, okay. But it shows the reason why we want it there also. And I can distribute this. I just have one copy. But I thought you guys would have it there, but it shows a big gap right there. And that's what's driving this whole thing. Verizon just doesn't go out and build towers, so they'll come or whatever. The customers have been complaining for a long time that there is a gap right here where calls are dropped, data is not communicated. And so by putting this tower here, it'll fill that need. And that's why it's really driving this. But it is needed in the area. But I don't know if you have any other questions or not, but I just want to make sure you all knew that we did read the code. So the engineers, we have drawn up a very detailed engineering report.
Well, I raised that point, sir, merely because we were told that the reason you wanted it there is you'd already done the site prep. And that's sort of taking things for granted. Those of us who work hours and hours and hours are trying to make correct decisions.
I understand that. We haven't done any site prep yet. We've just done engineering studies.
Oh, okay.
We've done a lot of studies on it. As far as the FAA, FCC, it's in process. It's got preliminary approval right now, so not final approval. So, but they'll handle all the FAA and FCC federal permits, and the NEPA studies and the SHPO studies. Those are all in progress right now, so they're very detailed. There's a lot more permitting than just local and state. There's a lot of federal permitting going on too. So.
Okay, thank you. For the public hearing, do we have any more discussion here at the commission? In the public hearing? Are you? Go ahead.
How are y'all? I'm Terry Parker. I own the property that we're discussing, and I'll give you the rationale of why we chose this site. And the pertinence, I live just to the east of this property, so certainly I don't want to do anything that's detrimental to my living either. So the reason we chose this area, all that checkered area is trees. It's fairly thick, and it creates a good buffer for me as well as the neighbors on Wimberley Road. That was the deepest point we could put it in the wooded area. And then and behind it, to the north of the site, you've got a 100-foot railroad right-of-way and an 80-foot Highway 14 right-of-way. So you're actually about 300 feet from the houses on the north side of 14. So it gives you more buffer space between the parties on Wimberley Road and the homeowners on north of Highway 14. And to be honest with you, I could have moved it down about 350 feet to the east, and it'd be in Lee County and not in Auburn. And you lose the tax money, and I could have had the tower built. But I don't want it there because it's to the right of that checkered area. That's all open land, and you can see it from the road, from my house, and these other houses. So where it's at is is the best location on my property.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go ahead and open the public hearing. So anybody would like to come forward and speak on this topic, please do. Make sure you sign in after you're done, if you haven't already done it, and give us your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Mary Rudd, and I live at 3999 Wimberley Road, which you see right there, which would be right across Wimberley Road from this proposed tower, adjacent to 4011. I would like to register my objection to this tower because I don't want to see blinking lights all night long. I'm under the impression that 2 of these towers in Lee County alone have fallen in the last year. I am not really excited about that either. So the lights and the fact that some have fallen, I would like to register my objection.
Okay, thank you.
That's my wife.
Okay.
Well, she signed for me too.
Can you give us your name?
I want to.
Can you give us their name, please?
John Rudd, 3999 Wimberley Road, adjacent to 4011, who registered the previous complaint. I also object to the thing. It would have been most helpful to us if they had drawn a 250-foot circle around the actual location of it on one of these maps so we could see how far it would fall if it fell. That would be helpful in us.
Answer that question for you, sir.
Please do.
Well, hang on a sec. Can we hold until after the public hearing, and then we'll address all the issues as they come up?
We'll get together back there. That would help a lot. The letter was very informative. We just had 1 or 2 questions about it. The total area that's there, not the little green place, is the zoning on all of that property going to be changed in this motion?
No, we're not addressing the zone at all. It's just a matter of the use.
Just that one little place?
Nope. It's just the use by itself. It has nothing to do with the zone.
Is the use going to be changed on the whole place?
Well, it's just to put the tower there or not, basically, is what we're trying to decide. The use, that particular use.
So conditional use doesn't change anything about the use of the property?
Well,
it'll change the use of the property to the extent that there'll be a cell tower on it.
There, okay, yeah.
But the rest of the property, after they meet the setbacks, could be redivided and used for other purposes to match the zone.
In the future.
Setbacks. Okay. So.
But that's not before us now.
Yeah, the property could be subdivided, but that's not the subject of the hearing tonight. That would be a future application.
I know it's already been approved to be subdivided. I know that. I just wondered if this changes any of that, and it does not. Is that correct? Okay.
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Can I respond to this?
Can you please wait till the public hearing's over? We'll have this after the public hearing. Next, please. Makes it a little more orderly.
Kim Harrison, 218 Tally Ho Drive. Hello, commissioners. Okay, so I have a question, point of clarification, actually. So we're doing conditional use approval, but we're not doing site plan. Is that correct?
No, yeah, it's true.
Okay, so because we have an applicant that has made application in a way that does not conform to the ordinance. Correct? The setbacks.
Stands now where that location is.
As it stands, the application that's in front of us doesn't meet the ordinance. So the site plan approval requires variance.
Right.
You are allowed under purveyance to give conditional use approval based on variance. Is that correct?
Well.
Or you can note it as necessary for
Wait a minute, ask that again.
variance. They would have to have variance to the setback.
In order to put it where they want to, they would have to have a variance, but that's
Right.
not.
That's the BZA.
That's the
Right.
BZA that does that.
And I understand things have kind of changed a bit since I've been doing this, but in order, and I understand the topography. I understand the reason that you're citing it where you are because it's wet.
Please
So-
address the chair. Thank you.
I'm sorry, that it's wet. The topography is wet. So, but they can't do this as our ordinance stands without variance.
That's correct.
Put it where
They cannot place it where they would like to place it without getting
the
relief from the BZA.
Right, the application is where the red X is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That's proposed. And so without variance, the application would not stand.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. I was just point of clarification. So we're not doing anything about site plan or any of that at this point. This is just use,
Simply the use.
appropriate use.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Next.
Hi, I'm Darren Olson. I'm 106 Bridle Court, the lot just to the north of the proposed tower. And my wife emailed a lot of the folks in opposition to it, and I didn't hear anybody mention that lot, but I know there are folks in the north lots that are opposed too. So if you shift it north of the red X to help the folks in Wimberley, that hurts us. So, you know, that makes it worse for us. I'm strongly opposed to it. I think it takes away from the residential character of the neighborhood. You know, I think it's somewhat unsightly. It would be very close to my lot in particular as a kind of a side issue. I'm not sure it's that important. But, you know, I have grid-tied solar panels on my house, and that has the potential to shade it out, to make my investment in that system none, you know. So it's just to the south of that, it has the potential to kind of cause me harm on my house. But, I mean, that's a secondary issue. I'm just more opposed to what it is. The kind of detracting from the neighborhood character of the area. And I think, like even I guess the landowner said, I think there are other spots in the county in very close proximity where it could go, and maybe where it should go, as opposed to there in Auburn next to some neighborhood area.
Great, thank you. Next.
He's right.
Oh, come on up. I'll see you. Didn't see him get up there.
Hello, my name is Bruno Ulrich. I reside at 1518 Stewart Circle, Auburn. What I heard at the beginning of this project was that it had been cleared and grubbed from the planning department.
I'm sorry, say again, cleared and?
I thought I heard that the property had been cleared. Then I heard the opposite from the owner and Verizon, that it wasn't cleared. Now, if...
And site prep has not been done.
Has not been done. But, okay, that's not what the...
Yeah.
So if I'll clarify, maybe this will help a little bit.
Sure,
clear
go
some
ahead.
Confusion. The statement that they have already done site work was simply limited to the site analysis for choosing the site that they had chosen and doing the initial work on the paperwork and administrative approvals that they have to apply for. They have not started any construction, clearing, or grading to this site.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Because I was going to say that if it had been cleared, that opens up Pandora's box. And I know a number of developers that would love to come to town and develop 50 to 100 acres, clear it, grub it, and then come in for approval, and would probably be granted it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Again, if you haven't signed up, the people that have been speaking, please do sign up on the board here.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, right here. Sorry.
My apologies for interrupting you earlier. I guess I've watched too many Judge Judy's. Thought that's how it was done.
Can you give us your name and address?
Oh,
for the record?
Billy Howard. I live at 4011 Wimberley Road.
Okay. Thank
And the thing I was trying to correct, when I talked to Jay, who was most gracious today on the phone in helping me answering a lot of my questions, one thing I'd like to say, if they had sent us the information that's up on the screen right now, would have been a lot more helpful than just the first thing I showed that's just blank, and it points to that property and says,
something's coming.
No, well, to change it to conditional use, well, I assume it's the whole property, you know, until I think, but I lived 65 years I've lived here in Auburn. Hope it's a lot more. Some of my concerns, other than the vague health stuff that some people are pushing, which is I moved out of town to get away from the lights and the noise. And it's my front porch I like to sit out on. Was one of the big selling points for me buying this house was a front porch. And I suffer from chronic pain, and I don't sleep a lot. And I like to, when the weather's good, I like to go out there and sit on the front porch and look at the stars, look at the planes coming by. You know, I guess they're headed to Montgomery and in and out of Montgomery and in and out of Columbus to who knows where. And I assume this tower is going to have some kind of strobe or light on top of it. Do we know that?
Yeah, I think we'll have the applicant talk about that, but we'll address that.
Okay, well, that's gonna.
Typically, it depends on what height it is, and then you put a light on if it has the right height.
Yeah, I mean, I have no idea. Everyone I've seen had them. I'm far from an expert on these, or as you can see, was dealing with y'all. I don't even know how it's done.
You're doing great.
But like I said, I'm disabled. And I'm old, and I found this house that was, the guy that built it was handicapped, so there's no steps in the house, all one level, walk-in shower. And, you know, I'm going to lose one of the big buying points of that house if that tower is put there. It's like Mr. Parker said, he doesn't want to look at it. Well, I don't want to look at it either. And, you know, I think that's pretty fair if he doesn't want to look at it, you know. It's his tower, and he's got all that land. Why doesn't he move it away from us and put it where it's flashing at him? That's just my 2 cents, and I appreciate y'all letting me get up on the soapbox here, and I'll hope I didn't aggravate y'all too much with my antics back there. And thank you so much for letting me get up here and address y'all.
No problem. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi, good evening. My name is Ralph McBride, and I'm a multiple property lot owner in the Woodland Park area that's across Highway 14. And I'd like to voice my opposition to the proposed tower. I have 2 small girls, and we like to play. As you see, lot 100 there, that's mine. There's a nice sidewalk that connects Phase 1 of Woodland Park to Phase 2. I don't know what the associated health risks are with these towers. I've read a little bit, but I'll claim, you know, pretty much ignorance on if it's true or not. But I have read that there are some health risks associated with people that live close to these towers. That concerns me. I think aesthetically it takes away from the value of the properties. That concerns me. And like the gentleman that just spoke, my wife and I purchased this property because it is a little out of town. It's quiet. We like the trees and having a bigger property so we can be outside and enjoy the quiet. I would be concerned with how many trees they would need to take down in order to develop this tower. But aesthetically and the health risk are probably the 2 biggest concerns that I have, in addition to what it would ultimately do to the property value of these lots here in Woodland Park. We've had some conversation in our Facebook group that people are concerned about it. Pretty quick notice to turn around, so we, you know, probably don't have as many people that normally show up. We've had our president of the Homeowners Association that posted the letter, and a few people were surprised they weren't aware of it, that there was a hearing on it. But nonetheless, the similar concerns basically is what the tone of that rhetoric was on the Facebook group about the aesthetics, what it would do to the property value if there's a medical concern, and generally just where it was. So I appreciate your time, and thank you for letting us be heard. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Others?
Gary Cantini, 608 Owens Road, Auburn, of course. Can we put the aerial back up on this for a second? Do we have any idea how tall these trees are? To me, I'm looking at it, it seemed like, obviously, the tower's going to be at 200 feet, but I'm wondering if some of these people are concerned about sight lines. Assuming they're only taking the trees out for the actual site prep area, I'm thinking the tree line's going to probably block a lot, at least the base of the tower. The only thing may really be visible is the actual light. And I know a lot of the lights around town, from what I'm thinking, are similar cell phone towers. That one red light blinking at night is really not that evasive. It's really not lighting your whole house up. As far as the concerns about health, which I don't agree with, are even out there, but studies show there's far more risk with the transmission lines from places like Alabama and Power than from the cell phone towers. But obviously we have to have those. And of course, the biggest issue here, as the gentleman from Verizon spoke, it's, this is driven by their customers saying we have cell phone dead zone here. And since most people have pulled the plug, don't have landlines anymore, although I still do at home, but if you can't get your cell phone connection, that's all you've got. To me, that's a safety issue that really seems to override a lot of the other stuff. And I don't know for sure, but I know at the BZA last night, they were proposing a monopole collapsible tower. I don't know if this will be a similar design or not, but if it is a similar design, those towers are designed to collapse basically within the base of the footprint. So even though it's a 200-foot tower, it's not going to fall over like a 200-foot tall tree. So I think the people's concerns about it falling on a house should be relieved at that. But that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And
I didn't want to respond.
well, I would like to have the applicant come up, and I want to ask you a couple of specific questions, and then let me ask you some questions first, and then maybe you're going to address these things. So there's three things that it seems like I want to address. One is lights on the top. And then the other one is it basically goes back to what this gentleman just kind of talked about. If it collapsed, how is it designed so that it falls within the footprint? And then the third thing was health.
Either, but I do know the distance from where we've got it, the site we've chosen to build it on. If it fell the full 250 foot, it wouldn't reach property owners on Wimberley Road or north of Highway 14 on the other side.
Just out of curiosity, would it hit the railroad? Just out of curiosity, would it hit the railroad track or
it would hit the railroad
14?
track and Highway 14.
Okay.
But it wouldn't reach the
no homes, no properties. Okay.
In the same way on Wimberley Road, it would hit Wimberley Road, but not the property. If that was 250 feet.
Sure. And if it's and then what about so at 250 feet? I assume there's some sort of lighting for FAA requirements, right?
Yes, the current FAA lighting is red at night, strobe during the daytime. The strobe's not during the night; it's during the day. It's during the daytime only. So there's a red beacon at night. So it's not very noticeable, especially close. The closer you get, actually, you got to be going looking like that. But and the trees in that area, I think there was one comment about that. How tall are they? They're about 35 to 40 feet tall. And if we, put it in the corner, so to speak, of Mr. Parker's lot rather than in the middle, the sight line's going to be incredibly, you're going to see the top of the tower, and that's basically it. As far as health goes, FCC.com, go look at it, read it. They've done a gazillion studies on that. I think the basic thing that I've gotten in a takeaway is that when I use my phone like this, I get more radiation than I would from a cell tower. And the only people that really get any are the tower climbers that go up there and they wear the radioactive badges.
The workers.
And they got to be within like 4 feet or something, or have to tune it down, so to speak. And that's about it. It's real low radiation, but the tower itself will be a 250-foot self-support tower. So right now we don't have it designed to be a self-collapsible tower, but those towers, they don't fall again like the pin or a tree. They're not monolithic. They're bolted together. They'll break and they'll fall. And they'll probably go, if they fell north, they would go across the railroad tracks.
Can I ask?
Sure.
Ask Verizon rep a question here. This map that you gave us, pass us here.
Yes, sir.
Shows the best coverage areas of that location. If I'm reading this correctly, the three major options for best coverage in the area all are in populated areas. Willow Creek, it says, Webster Station, and in Lochpoka, right? Is that what I'm interpreting this? In other words, they got to put them somewhere.
Right. Well, there's a big gap. The big part is the first page, the existing coverage, there's a gap.
Oh, okay, this is the existing, okay.
Okay, and then what we're trying to do is fill that gap between the two blue ink spots, for a better term. We're trying to fill that gap right there, primarily with data and voice. So I only had one of those. I don't guess you guys got it up in the deal, but
That's okay.
those are real informative. They really are. It shows the before and after effect of a tower. So as far as coverage goes, then it's being driven by customers. So
Okay, thank you.
Could you put there was a previous insert, ma'am, that you had up there that showed the plat better than that design, that showed them the property to, that's not the one I want either.
What else do you have?
That's okay, you can use that. You see the yellow, and again, the site that we've chosen is back in that corner, that's right. And then that property in the green next to it is, that property is in the city as well. Now you see that corner where it's white, that's 350 foot from the area that we're hoping to build this tower at. I can put that in the county, so I don't mean to be ugly to you people that don't want it there.
Please address the chair, sir. Sir, please address the chair.
We're going to put it in one of the two places. If you put it over there on the county property, that's all open land, and you can see it from the road and from their houses, much more so than the site we've chosen. Now, I would much prefer the site we've chosen, but if that's rejected by whomever, then it's going in the county. The city gets no taxes. I don't like it as well, but that's what'll happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Commission, any further discussion
Guys
or
done with me?
motion?
are you done with
We're
me?
done with you. Thank you. Thanks. No questions? Any more questions? Is there a motion?
Before I make a motion, this is a public utility that we all depend upon. Public utilities are those things that have to have become part of the infrastructure. And cell phone towers, I remember dealing with those when they first started popping up in Auburn, and there's just not much you can do with them. They have to be somewhere. And now the ones that I see, they sort of I've become blind to them. They're part of the landscape, like it or not. So with that, with as much as I understand the people concerned who live in this area, I do move that the PL 2019-705 Wembley Road telecommunications tower be approved, subject to all staff comments and subject to them getting, well, no, I just approved the site. I mean, not the site, but the use. Motion's ended. Did you get that?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
Let's have a roll call.
Robin Bridges? No. Bill Chancellor?
Yes.
Karen Jager? Yes. Matt Lazenby?
No.
Marcus Marshall?
Yes.
Warren LaFord?
Yes.
Lynette Reese?
Yes.
Bob Rice?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, the next item will be the number 12, case PL 2019-706. This is the Sky Bar back deck remodeling. Mr. Kip is here, so we'll have him present. All that do you feel like you've been more educated now that you're here?
Yes. Good evening. This is PL 2019-00706, Skybar expansion. This is a conditional use request. to expand a lounge use, a commercial entertainment use of lounge in an existing lounge, Sky Bar, as we affectionately know it. The applicant's requesting this to essentially add a second, it's already 2 layers. They want to put a new deck over an existing portion. You can see this section here is currently kind of a, everything that you're seeing on this is the second floor basically, but this section is open. And they're requesting to level that off so that this entire section is the second floor. So expanding the sales area of the lounge requires that conditional use. Property is zoned urban core. It's in the College Edge Overlay District. The property owner is Grid Enterprises LLC, and their representative is Randy Smith. Weren't any no serious concerns with the project. They've applied for DRT already, and that's what triggered this coming before you tonight is the expansion of a conditional use. You can kind of see, it's pretty difficult to see it, but essentially this is
No kind of to it.
currently this is all just open kind of patio decking on the first floor. So the intent would be to add the roof to it and use that space, and also add some bathrooms and storage. I did not receive any communications from citizens, and here's an aerial just showing where the property is, in case you never remember.
Thank you. Is there a representative that would like to speak on this?
Wait, I'm sorry. Logan, I did have a question.
Yes.
Go back to the drawing of the floor.
Sure.
Before that, yes, that. And tell me again, I got lost a little bit on, what is there now?
So this would be open. This would be on the first floor. It would just be a patio. So they want to cover it with a roof.
All right, okay, gotcha.
And use that space, yeah.
So they're adding, the whole thing would be added.
Correct.
Got it. Perfect, thank you.
Is there a representative that has anything to say? Well, I don't have to. Just if you have something specific to say. Okay. All right. We're good. You want to listen or? Yeah. We good? Okay. Come on up. Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Pat Ryder, 2232 Mount Vernon Lane. Currently, it's a patio, but it's open, so people, when we're not open, can walk right in. And so we want to just storefront it and make it basically the same as the whole front and the side. Also, it gives us a chance to add another female bathrooms. We're 8 bathrooms for the women. And we want to eventually, right on the side, on the left side of the bathrooms, we're going to put like a nice little waterfall. We want to make it like a beer garden. And so that's kind of what people like. It's not really about making it bigger. It's more about just closing it in, making it safer. But then it'll be an upper with a bunch of tables, and it'll be more like a beer garden thing. And that's what we have a lot of space, and we only basically ever have to limit our capacity on the Alabama or LSU games. So it's more about just getting more seating and more bathrooms for females and closing it in to make it safer.
So the patio on the first floor now, you're going to enclose that and then
Yes,
have the deck?
basically what it turns into is a smoke deck, and so people don't want to go sit out there that don't want to smoke, so it kind of kills it. So we would prefer we're going to close that in, make it pool tables for people to play pool back there, and then above it we'll have an outdoor that's with a waterfall and a beer garden. I think that would make people want to sit up there, and as opposed to just smokers. Yes, ma'am.
Any questions on it? All right, well, this requires a public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing at this time. Anybody would like to come forward and speak, please do. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Ask for any further questions or a motion.
Move on approval item 12 with staff comments.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Item number 13, Dinius Park. Case PL 2019-713. This is a recommendation to the City Council for a public park service use. Mr. Kipp.
That's correct. The request is for a public park to be located in the CDD and DDH zones. The property has a little bit of a corner in it that's CDD, the rest of the property is DDH. This is a city-initiated project. The City of Auburn owns it, and our authorized representative is Shane Yarborough from Foresight Group. I'll show you the site plan here and kind of just run through kind of what you can see. This is Glen right here. And you would come in and there's parking in this area, kind of this loop. It essentially is just one big loop that comes around and then exits. There'd be a dog park, a playground, some restroom facilities, and it's no real heated and cooled structure, so not anything like that. The property is currently in DRT, and we are recommending approval of it, and there were no major comments from staff on it. We did receive a communication from, and I guess I should go back a little bit. You see there's two kind of gaps in this rectangle, which are both single-family homes, and these are not part of this project. And as far as I know, those will remain single-family, privately owned, not owned by the city. We did receive a communication, and I believe you all received it as well, from one of the property owners in opposition or with some questions about how this little strip of land will be used. It's currently there's currently an easement there.
Where's it?
Yeah, which strip of land?
Right here. But they currently use that as their driveway. You can see this little section here where they're using it as a driveway.
City property, but there's an easement over it, which these property owners utilize this area to access their residence and driveway.
That's not.
Who's granted the easement?
And that doesn't change.
All right, the city has owned the property. To whom have they granted the easement? Just to those people that live there, or?
Yes.
Yes.
That's correct.
But is it also going to be access for the park?
No, not to my knowledge.
It will eventually for some maintenance purposes, but my understanding is it won't be terribly
Access
frequent.
is the main entrance. Right, okay, gotcha.
Here's an imagery just showing the property. It's currently forested with a big pond on it. I think there was a single-family home on it that was removed. Happy to answer any questions. Allison can speak more to access or any of those kind of traffic questions you may have.
Thank you. Is the representative here like to say anything? See you. Okay, this will require, excuse me?
It's Allison.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right.
We either.
Sorry about that. Okay, this requires a public hearing, so at this time, please come forward if you'd like to speak on this item. Please state your name, address, and if you haven't signed up, please do before you leave. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Toby Warren. I represent the Warren family. We reside at 1403 East Glen. We are one of the residential parcels that are positively impacted by this wonderful park. We applaud the design. We applaud its location. We have been there 22 years. We were very close to the Denius family. I've walked that property backwards and forwards, and it's going to be an amazing park. Before Dr. Denius died, he wanted to be sure that this easement was made available for potential future use. He died. His wife, Dr. Denius, as well, and my wife came very close, and she said to us, this easement doesn't make any sense to us. She died. So this wonderful plan is now in place. And what you might need to appreciate is that our residence does not face Glen. The side of our house does. Our front porch, our front yard is this easement. This property is worth $500,000 or $600,000. The back of our property is the lake, the pond, part of the park, which we love. I think we felt and feel that we've been taken for granted, that there has not been adequate communications with us in relationship to this easement, how it's to be used, for how long, etc. And we were told very specifically by Parks and Recreation that this easement was going to be for maintenance vehicles to maintain the park. And it was very important to the future of this project. And then 2 months later, we get a phone call from Parks and Recreation saying to us, hey, would you be interested in swapping land? We will give you that easement if you will give us 30 feet of your property, of your backyard, to go around the lake or the pond. Then all of a sudden it hit us. Well, evidently that 30-foot easement wasn't that important to maintain the park. So I guess as an example within the regulations and the material and the information that we received here, there's a wonderful term that we embrace, and it states it deals with an undue burden. I don't know what the definition of undue burden is, but we believe that there's an undue burden being placed on us, primarily because of lack of communication, coming up with a reasonable plan and a win-win option. There is no win-win option here. So we're certainly in favor and love the plan and what's going to happen. But Auburn, the city of Auburn, is better than this. We're about great citizens, and that's why we moved here, and that's why we've lived there for 22 years.
Can I ask a question? What's the burden? It's with the easement, that the idea that they would be using it to maintain the park? I guess I don't understand what the burden part
The rights that we have on the property that we own and the easement that we can use is the 30-foot from Glen all the way back to the back of the property that the city now owns. And we feel like what's going to happen is there is no real detailed plan regarding that 30-foot easement, when it's going to be used. We were actually told, I went to the Parks and Recreation, and I met with them, and said, we probably won't need that for 10 years. Probably. It's just too foggy. It's not boom, boom, boom. It's not nailed down enough. And so to approve this plan as written here probably doesn't make a lot of sense just yet. There's still work to be done. And Auburn, and the city of Auburn and the planning department's done a great job. The design is wonderful, but all the I's are not dotted here. And we're one of them.
Now, did I understand you to say that the city offered to trade that easement, the property on which that easement is
Correct.
located, for property on the backside of your lot?
And do you know why?
Well, I don't know why, but it sounds like it solves your problem.
No, it doesn't. It solves their problem because they really didn't need the easement, really. But what they did need is 30 foot around the lake so they could maintain the lake, and our property goes all the way up to the lake. So they have no access, real access, the city doesn't, to be able to create the kind of, I think, wonderful lake that needs to be created there. So we felt like that was a part of our backyard and very much a part of our property. And so we said, no, thank you. So we chose not to make the swap. So the easement is in place. But we just think that easement needs to be better defined and how it's going to be used, the timing of it, etc.
Can go away,
I was
as I
thinking,
understood. I thought you just said the easement can go away. Well, it's defined, it's yours.
Forrest, is the easement a deeded easement?
It's on
For
the
them
plat. It's
to-
on the plat.
Yes.
They have access
Yeah.
to their property currently through that easement, and that's not planning to.
We actually offered, by the way, we offered to the city or Parks and Recreation that we'd be happy to buy the easement. The Denius gave $700,000 toward this park to be invested in it, and we just love all that that's about. But I felt like, and we were told, no, thank you, we're not going to sell you the easement. So there's just too many question marks still. So to approve this thing at this point with too many unknowns, that's not very smart, in my opinion.
Okay. Thank you.
And by the way, this afternoon, or late this morning, I delivered a 3-page document to the planning department and to you, sir, so that you were fully aware of the concerns that we had and respectfully.
Yes, sir.
So this is not a surprise.
No, I sent it to them.
Yeah, we read it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this subject? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing.
At this point, we're just approving the conditional use. And this-
Right, you're approving a conditional use for a public park.
But
I want to say it in a positive way, this debate or this discussion about easements can be worked out after we approve a conditional use.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
or do we make it a condition?
no. Don't get in that legal box. I can appreciate everyone's concern, but those concerns don't rise to the level of our purview. We're not the deciders of the easement.
That's a legal issue.
And it's a legal issue. Even the gentleman that spoke spoke very highly of the park and in favor of it being a park, and I think we approve it, we just have to work the details out with the city and the Parks and Recreation people. And
Well, is there some sort of a forum that, I mean, is that a DRT kind of thing, or is there some other, or is that just?
Well, I know that there's been, obviously, as the gentleman detailed, there has been a fair amount of dialogue between representatives from the city and the family up to this point, and you know, I don't know to what extent those conversations will continue or not, but.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move on approval of item 13 on the agenda with staff comments.
Second.
Further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Okay, and now we're going to go to other business. This is the annual meeting of the commission to elect officers. So we have three offices to fill for this new year. The officers elected to these positions by the commissioners will serve for 1 year until the next election in January of 2021. So the officers to be nominated must agree to serve, and then they'll be elected and be elected. So there's the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. So let's start with nominations for the chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd nominate our existing chairman to remain in the seat for another year. I think he's done a exemplary job. I wish, however, in that nomination that he could make more packet meetings, but the fact that you were there at the last
I'm there on the phone at least,
Yeah, I
right?
understand. That's very good, and you should be commended for that.
Thank you.
But, it'd be nice to have.
I thought you were going to say you wish you could make more money.
That's what he's doing while he's not at Packet.
That's right. That's what keeps me from being there sometimes. I would be honored. So that means we need a vote. All those in favor?
Seconded?
I second. Seconded.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries.
Congrats.
Thank you. Now we're going to have nominations for the vice chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would be delighted to nominate our current vice chair, Ms. Donette Reese, who I think has done equally an exemplary job.
Second that motion.
Well, she has to be willing to serve. Are you willing to serve?
I am willing to serve.
Okay.
Thank you.
We already worked that.
And then we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Then finally, we have nominations for secretary. And the current secretary is going to recuse from the position, so we need someone to be nominated for that position.
By recuse, I understand he's stepping, he doesn't want to.
Stepping down,
He doesn't want
right.
to be re-elected.
Right.
And with that in mind, thinking again strategically, I nominate Mac Lazenby for that position because if he has to sign off on all the words he says, it might be, it might cause him to stutter fewer.
Starting to feel like a roast up there.
Are you willing to serve?
Oh, I'd be honored.
I'll second
As soon as I learn to read.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Congratulations to everybody. And then, Mr. Cotton, do you have any?
One last reminder of our work session next week, short-term rental work session number 2, the 14th, Tuesday the 14th at 4 o'clock in our normal meeting spot.
place?
Yes, sir.
All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.